Welcome to Starship TV. Today we are covering the topic of the roller derby. In this report we will cover origins and creation of the sport of roller derby, a complete history of the American phenomenon of roller derby. The roots of roller derby can be traced back to the late 19th century, with the growing popularity of roller skating and the emergence of amateur racing events. By 1922, the term derby was already being used in connection with multi-day roller skating race events. The individual most credited with inventing roller derby as a spectacle was Leo Seltzer, a film publicist. In 1935, amidst the Great Depression, Seltzer conceived of combining the endurance aspect of dance marathons, which were popular at the time, with roller skating. He read an article stating that over 90% of Americans had roller skated at least once, leading him to believe there was a built-in audience for such an event. Seltzer's initial concept was the Transcontinental Roller Derby, a staged multi-day race designed to simulate a cross-country journey. The first event took place on August 13, 1935, at the Chicago Coliseum and featured 25 two-person teams, male and female, skating laps on a banked track, aiming to cover a mythical 3,000-mile route. Spectators were drawn to the novelty and the occasional spills and collisions that occurred as skaters attempted to pass each other. Recognizing the audience's excitement surrounding the physical interactions, sports writer Damon Runyon in 1937 encouraged Seltzer to shift the focus from endurance to more direct competition and contact. By 1938, the rules evolved to include a point system for passing opponents, and physical blocking became a more integral part of the game. This transformation led to a more action-packed and combative style of roller derby that proved highly entertaining for audiences. Teams often developed rivalries, sometimes orchestrated by promoters, adding a theatrical element to the sport. Roller derby gained significant popularity in the 1940s, with professional leagues forming and attracting millions of spectators in approximately 50 American cities by 1940. However, over the following decades, the sport increasingly leaned towards entertainment, with some suggesting that the outcomes of matches were predetermined and the physicality was staged. In 1948, roller derby was broadcast on television for the first time from New York City's 69th Regiment Armory, which significantly expanded its audience and created overnight stars. The National Roller Derby League was founded around the 1949 to 1950 season. The sport's popularity began to wane in the 1970s. Leo Seltzer's son Jerry Seltzer, who had taken over the league in 1958, ultimately shut down the original roller derby in December 8, 1973, citing rising oil prices and the increasing costs of touring and heating arenas. While the memory of roller derby in this era often focused on the theatrical violence, the sport had also been notably inclusive for its time, featuring co-ed teams and welcoming diverse ethnicities. Attendance levels. Original bank track roller derby 1930s to the 1970s. Peak popularity. During its height in the 1940s through the 1960s, the original roller derby drew significant crowds. Matches in major cities like New York and Chicago could attract thousands of spectators. Television impact. The first television broadcast in 1948 dramatically increased its reach, and attendance at live events often surged after televised matches. Some sources mention crowds exceeding 7,000 after television exposure. Decline. Attendance began to decline in the late 1960s and early 1970s, contributing to the eventual shutdown of the original league in 1973. Factors like increasing operational costs and a perceived shift towards theatricality may have played a role. Here's a biography of Leo Seltzer and the invention and development of roller derby. Leo Seltzer, the founder of roller derby, was born on April 5, 1903, in Helena, Montana. He attended Lincoln High School in Portland, Oregon, where he played basketball. After high school, he continued to be involved in basketball in amateur and semi-professional circuits in Portland. As a young adult, Seltzer worked in motion picture distribution for Universal Film Company. This experience eventually led him to own a chain of struggling movie theaters in Oregon. It was during the Great Depression, around 1929, that Seltzer observed the popularity of cash prize dance marathons as a form of entertainment for both unemployed contestants and spectators. Seeing an opportunity, he sought to capitalize on this trend. In 1931, Seltzer began organizing and promoting walkathons, which were essentially dance marathons where participants often just shuffled or walked for extended periods, sometimes lasting as long as 40 days, to compete for prize money. He held his first commercial walkathon in Denver, Colorado, in 1931, and went on to organize 22 such events, reportedly earning $2 million before feeling the events had become vulgar. In 1933, Seltzer moved his family to Chicago, Illinois, and began booking events at the Chicago Coliseum. It was here in 1935 that the idea for roller derby began to take shape. Inspired by the popularity of roller skating and the excitement generated by the accidental collisions in early roller skating races, Seltzer conceived of a roller skating marathon. Legend has it that he sketched out his initial ideas on a restaurant tablecloth. The first transcontinental roller derby took place on August 13, 1935. This event featured teams of men and women skating laps on a banked track, simulating a race across the country. While initially conceived as an endurance spectacle, the audience's enthusiastic reaction to the physical interactions between skaters led to a pivotal shift. In December 1937, sportswriter Damon Runyon attended a derby match in Florida and recognized the potential for greater excitement through increased physical contact. He convinced Seltzer to redesign the event into a more competitive and combative sport. This collaboration led to the development of rules that emphasized passing opponents and allowed for blocking, transforming roller derby from a long-distance endurance race into the contact team sport that would captivate audiences. Seltzer trademarked the name roller derby on July 14, 1935. His decision to include women as equal participants was groundbreaking for the time, although it also contributed to the mainstream press initially viewing it more as a spectacle than a serious sport. Leo Seltzer continued to manage and promote roller derby, and while it experienced periods of great success, it also faced challenges, including a tragic bus crash in 1937 that killed 19 members of his touring group. He later passed the management of the league to his son, Jerry Seltzer, in 1958. Leo Seltzer passed away on January 31, 1978. In 2005, he was posthumously inducted into the National Roller Derby Hall of Fame. His vision of roller derby as a legitimate and exciting sport ultimately paved the way for its modern resurgence in the 21st century. While the original roller derby, founded by Leo Seltzer, experienced a decline in the 1970s and eventually ceased operations in 1973, a separate entity known as Roller Games emerged earlier and had its own distinct run, even overlapping with the later years of the original roller derby. Here's what you should know about Roller Games. A rival emerges. Roller Games was created in the early 1960s in Los Angeles, California, as a direct competitor to the Jerry Seltzer-owned Roller Derby League. It was founded by Herb Roberts, a former roller derby skater who established the National Skating Derby Inc. and its flagship team, the Los Angeles Thunderbirds, also known as the T-Birds. The first match was in 1961. In late 1961, the company was acquired by Bill Griffiths Sr. and Jerry Hill. Key characteristics and differences from original roller derby. Increased theatricality. Roller Games leaned even more heavily into the entertainment aspect than the original roller derby had in its later years. While the original derby had elements of staged rivalries and showmanship, Roller Games amplified this. Mostly televised, Roller Games was primarily a televised spectacle. Many of its matches were broadcast live on Los Angeles television affiliate KTLA, with announcer Dick Lane providing colorful play-by-play, famous for his catchphrase, "Wah, Nelly," when fights broke out. Expansion and leagues. Roller Games experienced rapid growth in the 1960s, establishing teams in various cities across the United States, like Baltimore, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Florida, as well as in Hawaii, Canada, Mexico, Australia, and Japan. It eventually encompassed several separate leagues under the Roller Games banner. National Roller Derby, which was later renamed the National Roller League. Canadian National Roller League. Japanese National Roller League. Notable teams. Besides the Los Angeles Thunderbirds, other teams included the Chicago Hawks, Detroit Devils, New York Bombers, Texas Outlaws, Philadelphia Warriors, and Brooklyn Red Devils. San Francisco Bay Bombers rivalry. Roller Games also featured the San Francisco Bay Bombers in certain games, creating storylines around the Thunderbirds claiming the Bombers were infringing on their territory. This version of the Bombers notably included veteran skaters Ann Calvello, Joan Weston, and Annis Jensen. Philadelphia Warriors, Jerry Hill, one of the owners, also headed up the Philadelphia-based team, the Warriors, whose games were broadcast on WKBS, with Elmer Anderson as the announcer. Some crossover, some former roller derby stars found new fame in roller games, and a few skaters moved between the two organizations. Later developments. The original Roller Games League, under Bill Griffith Sr., continued until 1975, when it underwent a major reorganization. In 1986, roller games made appearances on ESPN. In 1989 and 1990, a U.S. television show called Roller Games, note the slightly different spelling, was produced in collaboration with Griffiths. This version featured an even more theatrical and obstacle-laden variant of the sport, including a figure-8 track, the Wall of Death, and an alligator pit. The show lasted for one season. After the cancellation of the Roller Games TV show, Griffiths organized 3 untelevised Roller Games international events in 1990 and 1993. In summary, while the original roller derby was faltering in the 1970s, Roller Games had already established itself as a distinct and often more theatrical form of roller skating competition since the early 1960s. It had its own leagues, teams, and television presence, even outlasting the initial run of Seltzer's roller derby. Television appeal. Original bank track roller derby. Novelty and action. The combination of speed, contact, and the theatrical rivalries between teams made roller derby a compelling and unique television spectacle in its early days. Stars and personalities. Television created overnight stars like Ken Monty, Burt Wall, and Midge Tuffy Brassoon, who developed significant fan bases. Debate over authenticity. The staged aspects and the question of whether the fights and injuries were real or fake fueled both interest and criticism, contributing to its eventual decline in mainstream appeal for some viewers. Noise, color, body contact. Leo Seltzer himself described the sport's appeal as noise, color, body contact, which translated well to the visual medium of television. National broadcast. Original bank track roller derby. Early television. Roller derby made its television debut in 1948 from New York City. This marked a turning point, significantly expanding its audience. Roller derby is notable for being one of the first sports ever broadcast on television. In 1948, it debuted on television in New York City. While this wasn't a national network in the modern sense due to the limited reach of television at the time, it marked a significant step in bringing the sport to a wider audience. Syndication. In the 1960s, Jerry Seltzer began syndicating game tapes to local television stations across the country, which helped reintroduce the sport to a new generation of TV viewers after an initial decline. ESPN. Later in 1986, the Roller Games version, a more theatrical offshoot, made appearances on ESPN. Modern flat-track roller derby. Online streaming. Many leagues and events also utilize platforms like YouTube and Twitch to broadcast their games and tournaments, reaching a wider online audience. Limited traditional TV. Modern flat-track roller derby has not achieved the same level of consistent national broadcast on major traditional television networks as the original banked track version did during its peak. The focus is largely on online streaming and local broadcasts. Television appeal. Original banked track roller derby. Novelty and action. The combination of speed, contact, and the theatrical rivalries between teams made roller derby a compelling and unique television spectacle in its early days. Stars and personalities. Television created overnight stars like Ken Monty, Burt Wall, and Midge Tuffy Brassoon, who developed significant fan bases. Debate over authenticity. The staged aspects and the question of whether the fights and injuries were real or fake fueled both interest and criticism, contributing to its eventual decline in mainstream appeal for some viewers. Noise, color, body contact. Leo Seltzer himself described the sport's appeal as noise, color, body contact, which translated well to the visual medium of television. Modern flat-track roller derby. Emphasis on sport. The modern revival emphasizes athleticism, strategy, and genuine competition. While skaters often adopt colorful personas and derby names, the focus is more on the legitimacy of the sport. Online engagement. The appeal is strong within its dedicated community, who actively engage through online streaming, social media, and local events. Growing audience. While not yet a mainstream television phenomenon, the online viewership indicates a growing global audience that appreciates the fast-paced action and skill of flat-track derby. Here's a small list of some of the big names in roller derby history. Josephine Mabogash, a pioneering female skater and the first woman inducted into the Hall of Fame, 1952. Ivy King, known as Poison Ivy, a prominent skater in the early days. Wes Aronson, a significant male star from the early era. Peggy O'Neill, another celebrated female skater from the early years. Joe Nigra, a notable male competitor. Jean Vizena, part of the first A Villainous duo with his wife. Midge Tuffy Brassoon, a dominant and popular in villain, known for her toughness and rivalry with Jerry Murray. Jerry Murray, a glamorous and skilled skater, Brassoon's major rival, known for her speed. Ken Monty, a prominent male star and husband of Tuffy Brassoon. Burt Wall, another key male figure in the sport's history. Ann Calvello, a tough and enduring skater who remained a prominent figure for decades. Joni Weston, the blonde bomber, a dominant jammer and blocker for the San Francisco Bay Bombers. Charlie O'Connell, a charismatic skater who was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Russ Rosie Baker, a well-known male skater. Annis Jensen, a notable female competitor. Tommy Atkinson, part of the famous Atkinson skating brothers. Buddy Atkinson Sr., the other half of the Atkinson brothers, also a Hall of Famer. Hal Janowitz, a respected skater from the mid-era. Bill Reynolds, another significant skater during the sport's growth. Gene Gammon, a notable male skater and husband of Jerry Murray. Carl Payne, a recognized male competitor. Monta Payne, a celebrated female skater. Billy Bogash, son of Ma Bogash, also a significant skater. Sammy Scoble, an early Hall of Fame inductee. Thank you for joining us today. Starship TV hopes you liked this history of the roller derby. Please like, comment and subscribe to our unique TV